When I was a kid, I went to my grandpa's house. The old people in the village sat together and chatted in their spare time. I was listening to them talking about a strange incident in the neighboring village, where a white rabbit became a spirit. The incident was like this. In those days, houses in rural areas in the north were built with earth walls. The wall was built with earth from the spot. The incident happened when they were digging the earth. They found a black jar with a big belly and a small mouth. The jar was sealed and looked very solid. Everyone gathered around the jar and began to guess what was inside. Some people said it was opium, or in other words, gold, etc. The landlord was naturally so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. No matter what it was very valuable. At this time someone said, "Guess what? Just open it and take a look." "Yes," the landlord said. "Use the pickaxe to pry open the lid of the jar." The landlord used the tip of the pickaxe to gently knock on the lid of the jar. At this time, the people around held their breath, and the air seemed to condense. They stared at the jar without blinking. Under the knocking of the pickaxe, a small gap appeared under the lid of the jar. The tip of the pickaxe was inserted into the gap and pried hard. The lid fell to the side. In an instant, a white thing flew eastward. People were shocked and stood there. At this time someone shouted, "Look! It's a rabbit! It's a rabbit!" Everyone looked in the direction of the man's finger and saw a big white rabbit running away like lightning and disappearing from people's sight. After calming down a little, the owner looked in the direction of the light and found that there was nothing in the jar. What was going on? The owner frowned and looked at everyone with fear and doubt in his eyes. He wanted an explanation. At this time, an old man walked out of the crowd and said seriously, "Our village is in trouble. This is a white rabbit that has become a spirit. When I was a child, I heard from my grandfather that it had once harmed the villagers. Later a master put it into the jar." The owner asked anxiously, "What should we do? How did the master collect it?" The old man said, "Don't worry, everyone sit down. I will tell you slowly from the beginning. In the early years of the Republic of China, there was a small village called Shuangmiao, more than 20 kilometers away from our village. There were about 30 households in the village. The village was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides. There was a small river flowing through the north end of the village. At the easternmost end of the village, there was a family surnamed Liu. There were 7 people in the family. The old couple and 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. The 4th and 5th were girls. After the work in the fields in autumn, people entered the leisure time of hibernation. People played cards together, basked in the sun at the foot of the wall, chatted and passed the time. One day, a cock crowed and broke the silence of the night sky of the small village. Then all the roosters in the village crowed. The male owner of the Liu family was Liu Yu. Liu Yu opened his tired eyes and put on his clothes. He gently went to the yard to pick up firewood to make a fire. He lit the firewood in the stove. Liu Yu took out the pipe and filled it with tobacco. He lit the pipe and took a deep puff. The fire in the stove was very strong. The room was much warmer. The firelight shone on Liu Yu's face. He looked puzzled and frowned. Last night, his usually quiet wife became extremely crazy. She was sleeping soundly, but suddenly sat up and yelled, "Liu Yu, get up!" Liu Yu, who was about to fall asleep, was really startled and asked, "What's wrong?" His wife continued to yell, "Get up, I want to eat chicken. Go and get it for me." Liu Yu quickly put on his clothes and lit the kerosene lamp. Through the dim light, Liu Yu looked at his wife, who had no expression on her face and stared at him with wide eyes. Fear made Liu Yu stunned and at a loss. "Go, go." His wife yelled like crazy again. The children were also awakened and asked, "Mom, what's wrong with you? I want to eat chicken. Get up and cook it for me." Liu Yu, who had recovered, seemed to know something and said to the eldest son, "Get up. Go and get a chicken and stew it for your mother." The eldest son seemed to understand what his father said and didn't ask any more questions. "Put on clothes and go to the yard to catch chickens." Liu Yu also helped to light the fire. Soon the chicken was cooked. Liu Yu rolled up the quilt and put it on the table. The boss brought the chicken and the bowls and chopsticks. Liu Yu said, "Eat it." Seeing the chicken, his wife was not so manic anymore and said, "Bring the wine. I want to drink." The boss brought the wine. Liu Yu sat on the edge of the Kong and watched his wife eat meat and drink wine. She ate so deliciously. A chicken and a pound of white wine were all swallowed in the time it took to smoke a pack of cigarettes. After wiping her mouth, she fell asleep. When the sun rose, his wife got up early as usual and was very calm. It was no different from the past. "What happened to you last night? You ate and made a fuss," Lu Yu asked with a reprimand and complaint. His wife was very surprised and said, "What happened? I don't know." Lu Yu told his wife in detail what happened last night. His wife said with shame on her face, "Am I possessed by evil spirits? Find a doctor to see me." Lu Yu said, "Okay." After breakfast, Lu Yu came to Mr. Wang's house at the west end of the village. Mr. Wang can see the yin and yang houses and can drive away evil spirits. Lu Yu told Mr. Wang everything that happened yesterday from beginning to end. Mr. Wang counted with his fingers and said, "I bumped into a white rabbit. This white rabbit has been practicing for at least 400 years, but it has not achieved the right result. So it needs food and drink when it comes to the human world. Fortunately, its practice is not deep. I will draw a talisman for you. You can go back and put it on the door, and you will be safe." After that, Mr. Wang took out the yellow paper and cinnabar, and skillfully drew a talisman, and handed it to Lu Yu. Lu Yu took the talisman, thanked Mr. Wang, and hurried back home. He put the talisman on the door according to Mr. Wang's instructions. Lu Yu felt a little relieved. He went into the house and told his wife and children, "It's okay." When the family heard Lu Yu say this, they all put down their worries. Nothing happened overnight, and Lu Yu's worries were also put down. After breakfast, he went to the neighbor's house to play cards. His wife at home cleaned up the dishes and chopsticks. After cleaning the house inside and outside, he sat on the kong. He took out the needlework basket and started to sew the soles of shoes. The eldest son came back to the house after feeding the animals and brewed a pot of tea. He was about to drink it. He saw a white light floating from the window to his mother's head. He blinked hard and nothing happened. Was it because he was dazzled? He was about to ask his mother if she saw it. But before he could say it, he saw his mother throw the sole of her shoe and start cursing. She cursed no one but Mr. Wang, who drew the talisman for her. "You dare to block my way with your mediocre skills. Let me see how I will deal with you. If you have the guts, come here." The eldest son was so scared that he asked tremblingly, "Mom, what's wrong with you?" His mother seemed not to hear him, and continued to point to the sky and slap the kong and curse. The eldest son quickly asked his sister to find Lu Yu. Lu Yu was having fun. Suddenly he heard his daughter say that Mom was making trouble again. His head buzzed. He went to the field to put on his shoes and ran back home. He quickly asked his eldest son to invite Mr. Wang. Soon, his eldest son and Mr. Wang came back. Mr. Wang said to Lu Yu's wife, "Please go. This temple is too small to support a great immortal. Go to where you should go." After that, Lu Yu's wife slowly lay down and fell asleep. It was amazing. Lu Jun asked Mr. Wang what to do next. Mr. Wang said, "Let's go out and talk." When they got to the courtyard, Mr. Wang said to Lu Yu, "This rabbit spirit is much more powerful than I thought. Most rabbit spirits hide during the day and come out at night. This rabbit can come out in the morning, which means it has great Taoism. I can't subdue it." I just advised him to leave. The reason why he left was that it was almost noon. At noon, the yang energy was strong, and the evil energy was suppressed. In addition, the amulet my master printed on me, he couldn't do anything to me, so he left. But he will come back. You have to be prepared. After that, Mr. Wang hurried away. In the evening, as Mr. Wang said, the big white rabbit came again. This time it attached itself to the eldest daughter and cursed Lu Yu and Mr. Wang, saying, "Find someone to subdue me. I want to let you see how powerful this immortal is. I will break his legs right now." After that he walked out. Lu Yu and the eldest son hurried to pull the usually weak little girl. I don't know how she has so much strength. One of them fell on the kong, and the other sat on the ground. The girl opened the door at this moment and ran away frantically, disappearing into the night. Lu Yu and his eldest son got up and chased her, heading straight to Mr. Wang's house. It was very quiet when they arrived at Mr. Wang's house. They knocked on the door and Lu Yu asked anxiously, "Is my girl here?" "No, she is not. Mr. Wang replied. She came to seek revenge on you. Sir, be careful. I will look for her somewhere else. After that, the father and son searched the whole village, but did not see the girl. It was already late at night. The father and son dragged their tired bodies back home. Where could they go? The family members were all worried and kept silent, waiting for the dawn. The dawn did not bring light to the family. Someone found Lu Yu early in the morning and saw his daughter fell into the well. There was no sign of life. The news spread quickly in the village, causing panic. Mr. Wang also saw Lu Yu off that night and turned to go into the house. He didn't know why he tripped over the threshold and broke his right leg. These things made the originally happy and pleasant village dark and depressing, as if it was covered by a dark cloud. People had to admire this rabbit fairy. Every family worshipped its tablet. In less than a month, all the chickens in the village were almost eaten by it. People gnashed their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do but secretly look for a master. As the saying goes, the poor will give gold to the poor, and the sick will have a master to prescribe medicine. There is a village called Sambao Mountain 280 miles away from the village. There is a mountain to the north of the village. There is a forest at the foot of the mountain. There is a small river running from west to east through the forest. There is a family at the foot of the mountain, sitting south and facing north. The 3 earthen houses were very simple. The courtyard was not big either, but very clean and tidy. From the outside, it was hard to find that there was a family. The family's surname was Fang. The owner was Fang Lei, about 60 years old, with a strange personality. He rarely went out and was proficient in Qimen Duanjia, the 5 elements, and medicine. It was said that this person could go to heaven and earth to subdue demons and monsters, and could travel 1,000 miles a day by riding a bench. This was exactly the master they were looking for. Lu Yu secretly organized 4 people. Everyone gathered some money and quietly left the village to invite this worldly master. They arrived at Sambao Mountain without any trouble. After being guided by someone, they came to the door of Fang Lei's house and knocked softly. An old lady came out of the house with light steps, white hair and a childlike face, kind eyes, and a smile on her face, and asked, "Who are you looking for?" Lu Yu stepped forward and bowed deeply and said, "Excuse me, is Mr. Fang at home? We need his help for something important." "Come in," old lady said. When they entered the room, they saw a thin old man sitting cross-legged on the kong. His hair was gray, his eyes were bright, and his face was thin. He was wearing a black cloth, which was neat and well-fitting. When he saw the visitors, he did not speak. The old lady asked them to sit down and pour tea and water. She was very enthusiastic. The old lady asked, "What do you want? Tell me." "This is Mr. Fang." Lu Yu met Mr. Fang and told him the whole story in detail. When he was sad, he burst into tears and vowed to get rid of the white rabbit spirit. As he spoke, he took out all the silver he brought and put it on the kong. "Please, old man, save us. We will definitely repay you." Mr. Fang began to speak. His voice was deep and powerful. "You are the wrong person. I can also predict good and bad luck. Look at the yin and yang houses, and treat minor illnesses such as headaches and fevers, and exorcise demons. But I don't have that ability. Go back and ask for help." Lu Yu hurriedly said, "Sir, do you think the money is too little? You tell me the number. We'll go back and collect it." At this time the old lady spoke. "It's not about money. He really doesn't have that ability. I have lived with him for most of my life. I know best what he can do. You can ask around and see who can do it. This big white rabbit is really wicked." Lu Yu looked at the old lady after hearing this. She didn't seem to be lying. She was very serious. Lu Yu and the other 4 looked at each other. Although they didn't say anything, they understood. Now that it's come to this, they can only think of other ways. "Lu Yu, then we won't bother you anymore. We'll go back." After that, the 4 of them got up and went home. They were listless all the way. After they left, Fang Lei leaned on the pillow and closed his eyes to rest. After dinner, he went to bed early. Fang Lei heard that his wife had fallen asleep, so he got up gently and went to the yard. It was dark and silent at night. You couldn't see your hand in front of you. Fang Lei stood in the yard and suddenly rose into the air and instantly arrived at the east mountain of Shuangmiao village. Down, he leaned against the mountain and faced the village. His left hand was on his waist, and the tips of his right thumb and little finger were facing each other on his chest. Forward. He muttered something in his mouth. Suddenly, a white light illuminated the front of him, and he could clearly see a big white rabbit crawling on the ground. Fang Lei said, "You should have cultivated to become an immortal, but you failed to achieve the right result and became a harm to the world. Today, I will punish you to be confined to the altar for 100 years. Why don't you enter the altar quickly?" Fang Lei pointed his hand downwards, and a black dot was spinning and slowly getting bigger. Finally it appeared. In front of him was a black jar. A purple light came out from the mouth of the jar, and the white rabbit was received into the jar along with the purple light. The jar lid was also covered with the light. Fang Lei used his fingers to gesture on the jar lid a few times. A light symbol appeared. A red light flashed, and the seal was deeply embedded in the lid. The jar slowly sank and disappeared into the ground. Lu Yu returned to the village. Because the journey was long and the business was not completed, he was very tired after returning home. He fell asleep without saying a word. In the dream, an old man clearly said to Lu Yu, "The demon rabbit has been subdued. Don't worry or be afraid. Its tablet has been taken back. Tell the people in the village to live a good life." Lu Yu saw that the other party was blurry and wanted to take a closer look. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see clearly. The old man was getting farther and farther away. Lu Yu wanted to shout but couldn't. He woke up anxiously and was sweating profusely. Could it be true? Half believing and half doubting. He hurriedly got up and went to the west room to look at the tablet of the rabbit fairy. The words of the rabbit fairy on the tablet disappeared. It was true. Lu Yu was extremely happy. God has eyes. Those who do evil will perish. It disappeared like smoke. The small village returned to its former tranquility.